tax freight train is bearing down on your retirement. To protect yourself, you'll have to harness the power of zero. Hello, folks. Welcome to the Power of Zero show. I am your host, best-selling author David McKnight, author of The Power of Zero, Look Before You Lerp, The Volatility Shield, and Tax-Free Income for Life, all of which can be purchased on bulk at davidmcknightbooks.com or in single copy on Amazon. If you're looking to navigate all of the pitfalls that stand between you and the 0% tax bracket, why not head over to davidmcknight.com? And if you're an advisor looking to level up your game and incorporate all of the Power of Zero principles and worldviews into your financial planning practice, head on over to powerofzero.com. Of course, would always love a follow on Twitter. If you would like to watch our movie, if you're a financial advisor, would like to watch it for free, you can watch it at thetaxtrain.com, thetaxtrain.com. Okay, we got a great show for you today. I wanted to start off just updating you briefly on my book. I'm basically done with my next book. Just going through some final revisions. We'll be shopping it out to different publishers through my agent here in a little while. Just as a reminder on the synopsis, it's basically 1985, a shadowy cabal of Harvard graduates infiltrates the federal government and over the next 35 years become, the leading congressmen, senators, members of the Federal Reserve Banks all across the country. And their goal is to lie in wait until one of them becomes the president of the United States and then completely revolutionize U.S. monetary policy so they can pay for all of their utopian spending initiatives that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. And at a certain point in the book, we get to know our protagonist. His name is Ian Becker. He was raised by his grandma, who was a refugee from communist East Germany. And when he learns of the plot, along with his ex-girlfriend, Paige Keller, they have to decipher a code written on the back of a cryptic photograph that his grandma revealed just before she died. They then have to investigate the organization, uncover its objectives, identify its members, and expose it all to the voters before Super Tuesday, when this candidate will likely secure the nomination to become the next president of the United States. So the underlying theme of the book is I'm trying to expose a massive threat to the American economy. And that's trying to recognize that there are forces in our country who are trying to re-envision or revolutionize, as it were, monetary policy in the country. And I've interviewed lots of economists who say it would be disastrous for us to adopt such a policy. And I wanted to do it within the context of a Dan Brown type thriller with a cool M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end. If you guys have read The Volatility Shield, you know that I love the twist endings at the end. So keep your ear to the ground for release dates on that. This is going to be something that you can read on an airplane, you can read on vacation, and it's going to be a really quick read. It's about 75,000 words, which is the longest book I've written since about 2012. I wrote a novel called Tongue of Fire, it's about 103,000 words. So this is the longest book I've written in about 10 years. But it's going to be a quick read because it's going to be an edge-of-your-seat thriller that you're really, really going to like. So keep your ear to the ground for that. All right, before we get into the main bulk of what I wanted to talk about today, just a quick note on interest rates. The Fed is wrestling with whether they want to raise interest rates to combat inflation and to sort of tamp down an overheating of the economy. But there's one thing that's preventing them from doing so, and you'll never guess what it is. That's right, it's the national debt. Here's the issue. If they raise interest rates, then the cost, and that's what Federal Reserve chairmen typically do when the economy is overheating or when inflation is sort of going out of control, they raise interest rates. Here's the issue. If they raise interest rates, then the cost of servicing the national debt will rise dramatically. And this could force the federal government to raise taxes on nearly all Americans to be able to avoid not defaulting on the national debt. Remember what happens when you default on the national debt. And by the way, we're constitutionally required to pay the interest on our national debt. But if we were to, for example, default on the national debt, that would precipitate a global depression that would cause the stock market to tank. So we've got a lot of vested interest in keeping and being able to pay these interest payments. So we're now to the point where the debt has gotten so big that the Fed doesn't want to raise interest rates in order to prevent the economy from overheating and preventing inflation from continuing to rise. So it's all because of our national debt. So there are unintended consequences of letting our debt grow too big. And this is one of them. That the Federal Reserve does not want to raise interest rates when they probably should be raising interest rates to combat inflation and to prevent the economy from overheating. So as time goes on, folks, the debt is going to be calling all the shots. It's going to be running the show. And this is one of the unintended consequences of living beyond our means as a federal government. All right, let's talk about the current state of the Build Back Better plan. I'm drawing some of this from an Axios article. Some Senate Democrats are bracing for President Biden's Build Back Better package to get punted into 2022. And this is an issue. If they can't get this through by the end of 2021, there are going to be some significant issues and barriers that they face in getting this signature Biden legislation approved. Now, the first one is what I call the stinky fish concept. This much we know. The longer legislation stays out, the more it starts to stink. You leave a fish out for 24 hours, it starts to stink. Congressmen don't want to be associated with stinky legislation. It's bad for their reelection chances, particularly in the run-up to midterms. Legislation that doesn't seem to have the consensus of, elected representatives makes it look like that Joe Biden no longer has a mandate on this stuff. It makes it look like they don't have a cohesive caucus. It makes it look like they don't have their stuff together. And so people tend to not get really excited about legislation that doesn't look like it's got, unified backing, as it were. So what they've done, they want at all costs to prevent this legislation from spilling over into 2022. So what they've done is they've set a date of December 28th to get this legislation approved. And here's the issue. Even Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is privately acknowledging that passing the bill before January is a very ambitious goal, and it's facing some real headwinds. What are those headwinds? Well, let's go back to our friend Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin is saying that he is not in any hurry, particularly because of the most recent report from this last Friday showing inflation running at an annual clip of 6.8%, which is as high as it's been in over 20 years. Senator Lindsey Graham, who's a Republican from South Carolina, told reporters that he spoke with Manchin on Friday following the release of both the CPI report as well as the Republican score of the Build Back Better package. And by the way, that score, basically this came from the CBO as well, estimates that the bill is going to cost $3 trillion more over 10 years if these programs that are set to expire 3 or 4 years into the program actually get renewed. And by the way, this is what Maya McGinnis told us in her analysis of it. She said, there's all sorts of budgetary gimmicks that are part of this legislation. Once these things go into force, it dramatically increases the likelihood that they will be renewed when they sunset in, between 3 and 5 years. So this is a gimmick that happens on both sides of the aisle. As you stuff programs into bills and you keep the cost of those programs down by letting them sunset and letting people get hooked on the programs. But then you face such big backlash once you threaten to not renew them that you are forced to renew them if you want to keep your seat in office. So Lindsey Graham says this. He says, Joe Manchin came to me and he said, I think this bill is full of gimmicks, which he's right, that these programs won't go away. Lindsey, and if you score them, I think the bill will double. So what Joe Manchin's reservation was that he thought that the cost of the bill over time would double if these portions of the legislation that were designed to sunset end up getting extended and made permanent. So his fears were confirmed. The cost of the bill was shown to double if these things are kept in there permanently. So Joe Manchin holds all the marbles at this point. He holds all the power. He's the most powerful man in Washington right now, and he is giving indication that he is not in any hurry to get this thing pushed through. If it does spill over into 2022, it will probably, if it does get approved, which I think it's facing serious headwinds, it will likely be in a much, much smaller form. So why does this matter to people who espouse the power of zero worldview? Well, you got to remember that part and parcel of the Build Back Better plan is an overhaul of the tax code, overhaul of the tax brackets. We still don't know what tax rates are going to do over the next 10 years at this point in time. If Biden can't get this legislation through, the Trump tax cuts will revert back to what they were in 2017. The 22% tax bracket will become 25. The 24% tax bracket will become 28. If Biden does get this through, he will likely extend the Trump tax cuts for middle-class Americans through 2029. So it really comes down to this. Will you be able to execute your tax-deferred to tax-free shifting strategy over 4 years, or will you be able to do it over 8 years? If you have to do it over 4 years, there's a much higher likelihood that you're going to rise into a tax bracket that gives you heartburn. If you can do it over 8 years, then you'll be able to stretch that tax liability out over a much longer period of time, which will keep you in a lower tax bracket and allow you to spend more money over the balance of your retirement. Remember, if you have to get all your money shifted before 2026, you will give more of your money away to tax than you ever thought possible. Yes, you could be in the 0% tax bracket, but you will have given more money away to the IRS along the way. If you can stretch that shifting schedule out over 8 years instead of 4 years, you stay in a much lower tax bracket. And whatever you don't give to the IRS, you get to keep in your investment portfolio, grow and compound that over time. And ultimately, your money lasts longer. So we're going to keep our ear to the ground on this. My sense, as I've said it in past podcasts, is the longer this drags out, the less likely it is to be approved. All right, that's the podcast for today. Once again, if you're looking help to navigate all of this in terms of your retirement, we're happy to hook you up with a member of our elite POZ advisor group, among the very best tax-free retirement specialists in the nation, trained, vetted, qualified personally by me. Head over to davidmcknight.com. Happy to make that connection. If you are an advisor who wants to learn how to get this word out to your clients and prospects in your neck of the woods, head over to powerofzero.com. You can opt into a free 3-part video series. At any point in that video series, you can get on the horn with us, and we'd be happy to talk to you. Once again, would appreciate a follow on Twitter. It's @McKnight & Co. On Instagram, it's David C. McKnight. David C. McKnight. You can also follow me on YouTube. It's the David McKnight channel. So thank you so much for being with us this week, and we will look forward to chatting with you same time next week.